decay. No, feel the fury inside, try to bury my pride, but I'll rob the grave.
Become my blade once more.
Carrying a cross and the hilt's already fading. Leather in my grip, I never miss my swing. River running red from the dead, escaping. Heaven or hell, take the land between. And out there, this weight that I'm under, and no force could tempt a kneel. I bend for honor only. No, this seal, it's not real. This shattered will define a spirit burning and honest. My demons paralyzed, terrified. They branded sacrifice, so tarnished early and often. My fury justified. Sealed up by fate and break the embers. A scarlet taste, my blade remembers. Temper my crown, yeah, I wield what can't decay. No, feel the fury inside, try to bury my pride, but I'll rob the grave. My skin to stone, my flesh to onyx. This gravity is daunting. The poison breath, the slaughter death cannot infect my conscience. Cause I've been here before, bloodstains on altar doors. And I wish I was more, but I jail my doubts and errant souls, yeah. This shattered will define a spirit burning and honest. My demons paralyzed, terrified. They branded sacrifice, so tarnished early and often. My fury justified. I decide. Sealed up by fate and break the embers. A scarlet taste, my blade remembers. Temper my crown, yeah, I wield what can't decay. No, feel the fury inside, try to bury my pride, but I'll rob the grave.
And we are live. Hello, all you BC WrestlePod nerds out there, and welcome to another rendition of the Takedown Troupe, your weekly TNA wrestling review show here on the BC WrestlePod YouTube Twitch conglomeration podcasting network thingamabob. That's a lot to say in one breath, but we are here to review another episode of TNA Wrestling, which, you know, for lots of changes that needed to be made due to certain things happening and whatnot, we're going to get into all of that and determine whether this was good or bad. I am your host, Mikey, also known as El Jefe around these BC WrestlePod parts. And, you know, I'm the one doing the ones and the twos and everything else. And, of course, joining me this evening is my partner in crime, you know, the lover of all things TNA, but also himself, who I cannot do this without, and I thank him for making the time for this because I know this man is a busy man. So,
So
but of course, we are here to review TNA Wrestling. So, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. You can follow us all over the social medias at BC WrestlePod. We are on the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, the TikTok. We also have a Next Level account. So if you download Next Level and look up BC WrestlePod, you can find all our social medias in one concise place. We're also on YouTube and Twitch, and any little bit helps. So spread the word, subscribe, hit the follow button. We also have a Patreon that you can join if you wish, that has unseen footage of our watch alongs, which gets kind of out of hand, which is a lot of fun for sure. But tonight we are here to review the Thursday, October 31st episode of TNA Wrestling, which was the spookiest one. So, really quickly, before we get started with all of this, TNA opens up this week with a voiceover from Tom Hannafan that tells us that at a recent TNA taping, Chris Bay, one half of the tag team ABC, sustained a injury in the middle of the match, which had him to get rushed to the hospital, and he had to have immediate neck surgery done. And he is in good spirits, and the road to recovery begins. So shout out to Chris Bay. Tom Hannafan also mentions that Chris Bay's loved ones / family have set up a GoFundMe for anything that he's going to need in this rehabilitation. So our thoughts and prayers are to Chris Bay and his family in these trying times. And also, it should be mentioned too that Chris Bay wasn't the only person to get injured at these tapings. The other person to be injured would be El Hijo del Vikingo, who injured himself and had to be stretched out in the middle of his match during the tapings on Sunday, which is very unfortunate. So we'll get into that when we get there, because that explains why we got a recap of a match that we already saw at Bound for Glory, but we'll talk about that when we get there. But once we get all through the mushy stuff out of the way, we rightfully so begin TNA with Joe Hendry's music hitting. And I was like, okay, so we're just going to get this out of the way. Joe Hendry is going to come out. We're going to talk about what went down at Bound for Glory. This is going to be fine. And then I was watching, I was just like, hold up, wait a minute. I'm like, that is too brown of a beard to be Joe Hendry. And lo and behold, Frankie Kazarian was channeling the inner spirits of Halloween, because Frankie Kazarian dressed up as Joe Hendry and comes out and does a horrible, but yes, somehow entertaining, impersonation of Joe Hendry. Look, as much as we hate Frankie Kazarian's character, I actually found this highly entertaining. This was so stupid, but in the best way. But Frankie Kazarian mocks Joe Hendry, which then prompts the real Joe Hendry to come on out. And he would deal with Frankie Kazarian a little bit later. But okay, so let's just rip the Band-Aid off, right? So Joe Hendry comes out. He talks about what went down for Bound for Glory. He got mad at Frankie Kazarian, rightfully so. Everybody should get mad at Frankie just because it's Frankie Kazarian, duh. But then Joe Hendry starts to go on a tirade, and he's like, Frankie Kazarian's out to get me. Nick Nemeth screwed me out of everything. Mr. JBL, John Bradshaw Layfield screwed it. We're slowly watching Joe Hendry go down the spiral into madness, if we will. And Joe Hendry is calling everybody out and blaming everybody, and think everybody's trying to screw him out of his moment and to get this championship. But I was like, I don't know if this is the route we should go. We'll talk about it in a little bit. But then Nick Nemeth comes out with, oh my God. And then he just comes out. He tells, Joe Hendry that he watched the tape back. He had nothing to do with what went down. His hands are clean. He wants to give Joe Hendry a title shot, but Santino says no. But before anything else can go down, do you want to know something? Alicia Edwards comes out with Eddie Edwards and Mr. Johnny Dango Curtis. And basically, the system cut a small little promo against Nick Nemeth and Joe Hendry, talking about how Joe doesn't need, Joe doesn't get another shot. Nick Nemeth said he's a fighting champion. Well, you can go against the system. The system is in full effect, which then sets up our main event of the evening. Nick Nemeth and Joe Hendry will team up once again to take on Eddie Edwards and Mr. Johnny Dango Curtis. But we end the segment proper as Nick Nemeth and Joe Hendry hit their finisher on Frankie Kazarian, who is still in character at this point. So he gets a danger zone and a standing ovation from the two. And that is how this opening segment goes down. So it is no secret that all of us here at BC WrestlePod, especially the TNA boys, we love us some Joe Hendry. Me and Will had an interesting conversation earlier today through messages about what we transpired in this opening segment. I'm going to let Will go first here as the president of the Joe Hendry fan club. He gave me a lot of thoughts, so I'm going to give him the floor. Will, this was our opening segment for this edition of TNA. How did we feel about it?
Well, let me talk about Frankie Kazarian. I thought it was super fun. And here's my thing about Frankie Kazarian. If they make him the funny bad guy, I'm all here for it. Like, if he's going to do stuff like this and then get his ass kicked every time he does it, then I'm here for it. I think it's funny. I think it's fun. Yada, yada, yada. Then, then Joe comes out and then Nick comes out and then, and I don't like where they're taking Joe. I don't like what they're doing with him. It's like all of a sudden, and see, this is one of my big issues sometimes with TNA, is that they will take a character and just switch them super fast. And I get that, Joe was screwed out of the champion title at Bound for Glory because, JBL came in and blah, 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 blah. I get that. I don't think it's what Joe was happening worthy. I mean, honestly, because that's not Joe Hendry. That's the big thing. This is what irritates me. That's not Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry is like, oh, hey, you screwed me. So we're going to fix this. And I'm going to smile the whole time we're doing it. He's just like, it just wasn't him. And I don't know what it was. And I don't know where it came from. I don't think there was a build to it. I think it just came out of nowhere. All of a sudden, Joe's like this egotistical ass. And I'm like, that's not right. There's something not right here. And I'm just like, and Nick came out and he's like, hey, I had no idea, this, that, and the other. And which I believe. But I'm just, and then of course, anytime the system walks in the room, I just shut off because I'm just like, I hate them so much. And it's just like, and again, and I've said it in the past, I think the system's done. They need to go away. I'm seriously, because now it's the same crap over and over and over again. And it's not even new. It's not even interesting. It's like, okay, here they come. They're going to challenge everybody, blah, blah, blah. I don't freaking care. I literally don't care. And then the main event happens, which we'll get to, and that just pissed me off. Like, I'm like truly walked away. And I was mad. I was so mad because it makes no damn sense. None of it. Starting at this point, none of it makes sense.
Spoiler alert.
The whole episode. There were things that happened in the whole episode that make no damn sense. I mean, truly.
So I'm going to be honest. So I figured there was going to be a lot of like switch around of what got aired, given the fact that, Chris got injured in the middle of the tag team match that ABC had with the Hardys at the taping. And then Vikingo got injured during his match with whoever it was. And I'm just like, I'm pretty sure they have to cut some things and switch it around. Spoiler alert. Will's probably going to get a little bit mad when we get to a little bit later because I have a conspiracy theory. I don't want it to be right, but I can smell something coming a mile away. Not necessarily with Joe Hendry, but it is system related, which we'll talk about when we get there. Yeah, this was a weird opening. I don't know where we're going with Joe Hendry, and spoiler alert, by the end of it, and seems that now we're devolving Nick and Joe Hendry into bitter enemies, which is really weird because, you know, they're both technically faces. On one hand, I am okay with Joe Hendry showing a little bit of dimension and getting frustrated with always getting screwed out of, you know, the big moments. Like Josh Alexander took his moment from Slammiversary and got it back at Victory Road, you know. And I'm just like, this is what I like to say. So just like I tell my friends when they're complaining about their significant other, you know, and they get caught cheating, I was just like, you're mad at the wrong person. You shouldn't be mad at the other person who's taking your man. You should be mad at your man. And this is how I'm applying it. Joe Hendry, you shouldn't be mad at Nick Nemeth. You should be mad at JBL. You're mad at the wrong person. And I think this was frustrating me with this whole thing. I'm like, Joe, you are mad at the wrong person. And, you know, it has devolved into chaos by the end of this episode.
But see, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And yes, I think that Joe should be frustrated. He should be upset. Absolutely. But this was different. This wasn't frustration and upset. This was like pure, like pissed off. I'm going to fucking kill everybody. Excuse my language. And that is so out of his wheelhouse that I don't understand. Hey, and I don't understand it. I truly don't. I don't get it. I just, it was so out of character, you know, that he would be like that. I mean, frustrated is one thing, and we've seen him frustrated before, but he wasn't like this. Like, this was like personal. This was like super personal. And I'm like, Joe doesn't take things personally. I mean, he doesn't. He's that guy. He's like, he makes a joke out of it all. He's like, yeah, okay, you beat me, big woo. Who cares? I'm going to come back and do some other things. You know, he's like super Mr. Fun guy. And this was like, and here's what irritates me. Or this is what set me off. Because now Joe, in my eyes currently, is like everybody else. He's not himself anymore. And it's like, you're not unique anymore because now you've become everybody else. You've become Frankie Kazarian. You've become the system. You've become every other wrestler in the company. So now you're a cookie cutter. And so you're boring to me now. You know, and it's like, now he's not boring to me, but I'm just saying the idea. It's like boring. It's like, we already have that guy. He's literally standing right in front of you, dressed as you. Why are you being that dude? It's like, that's not who you are. And that's what set me off. It really just set me off. I was just like, I don't get it. I be pissed, be frustrated, but you stay in character, my man. That's my thing. That's the theater teacher in me. So.
Well, we weren't done with opening promos because as soon as we were done with this one involving, you know, Joe Hendry and Nick Nemeth and JDC and Eddie Edwards of the system, we continue to have the system show up, but this time it was in the form, when we come back from commercial, is in the form of Alicia Edwards and the Boricua badass herself, Tasha Steeles. So Alicia gets on the mic. I figure this is where we were going because there's still some unresolved beef between the two, but Alicia and Tasha call out Masha Slamovich, you know, saying that her title reign is going to be short and, you know, everything that is going to happen with it, which then prompts Masha Slamovich to come out, which I noticed immediately that we got a new theme song for her because that's not her original theme song, but she comes out. She's still looking like a badass. I was drinking water and I did a spit take when she, you know, mimicked Alicia and mocked her. Do you want to know something? It's like, everybody doesn't want to hear you talk, girl. Shut up. I was like, yes, Masha. Speak it louder for the people in the back. But essentially, Masha's like, if you want another championship, I don't care who it is. It's you, Alicia, or you, Tasha. I'm going to whoop that ass. So come get some. And, you know, they begin to beat her down. Masha holds her own, but 2-on-1. And this is where I got a little mad. I was like, let's be real. Masha can take these two any day of the week. Let's be all the way real. But I get it. We have to tell the story. And then Jordan Grace, her bestie, comes out to even the odds. Santino comes out and makes it for next week. We are getting Tasha and Alicia versus Masha and Jordan. So I was like, okay, So that's cool. I'm actually looking forward to that match. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I was less mad at this than I was at the one before this promo. I was mad at Joe Hendry one. This one did not irritate me, but I was like, let's be real. Masha Slamovich can kick a bitch's ass any day of the week. But I get it. And I wasn't as mad as with this one.
I wasn't either. This one made sense. This one actually made sense because, all of these wrestlers were being who they were. Alicia is being Alicia. I mean, she is. Miss Tasha Steeles being her badass self. I mean, they were being who they were, even at Bound for Glory. That's who they were. So then Masha comes in, and Masha's Masha. I mean, she is like, yeah, okay. You do a lot of this, to Alicia Edwards, which was great. I do. I agree. I loved that whole part. And then them, of course, and it makes sense. I was like, yeah, they're going to attack her. Duh. Boom. And it happened. And then I was like, someone's going to come out and stop it. And boom, it was Jordan Grace. Duh. And it made sense. This whole sequence made sense to me. Like, I was like, okay, this makes sense. The rest of the episode probably doesn't, but this made sense because they were being who they were. They were doing what they were supposed to do. And that's what's so funny is looking at this one just made me more angry of the one before it.
Get ready because we're going to talk about the main event. I'm pretty sure.
I know. I'm going to be so pissed. Just so you know.
I'm going to be like, and now presenting our new segment, More Press Than a Panini, where we just verbally vent all the things.
Yep.
It's kind of crazy that Ring of Honor this week was actually really good, and TNA had me leaving. By the end of TNA this week, I was left with more questions than answers. And usually it's the opposite. I mean, Will checks out all our stuff, and he knows that the ROH crew, we kind of poo-poo on ROH because the last month and a half, or at least the whole, pretty much all of 2024 has not been great. But last night's episode was 3 hours, and that shit was banging. Like, there was nothing that was like, felt like it didn't belong there. We actually progressed storylines, which is nuts. And also, the main event may have crept into the top 3 women's matches for me in 2024, but I'll have to revisit that one beforehand.
Nice.
And TNA left me more questions than answers, just like this in first match that we get of the evening. So this is like 15 minutes. We finally get our first match, and this was First Class, which is AJ Francis, who I'm like, but who I'm excited for now that he's signed full-time in Mr. Casey Navarro. I love Casey so much. I'm so happy TNA signed him full-time. But it is First Class taking on the returning reunited Rascals of Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz. And I actually really enjoyed this match. Now, we know that AJ Francis is like the power of the whole entire match because between Zach, Trey, and Casey, they're all the high flyers offense, which I love. This is where question number 1 comes in because you have the Rascals return. They're reunited. Trey Miguel is healed from his injury, which I'm super happy about. But they lose. Like, what is happening?
To freaking AJ Francis.
I was like, okay, if Casey Navarro got the win, I would not have batted an eye. I was like, Casey makes sense. But the down payment from AJ Francis, I was like, was there a reason that the Rascals needed to lose this? Like, what's happening, TNA? What's going on?
I mean, to First Class. What the hell, TNA? I mean, if you're gonna defeat the Rascals, give them a good team to freaking get beaten by. I'm sorry, everybody knows that I hate AJ Francis. I absolutely hate that whole character. I hate First Class. I love Navarro, but I can't. It's by association. And so I'm just like, so this, even though this was a pretty good match, pulling my personal bull crap aside, the match was actually really good. Makes no damn sense why the Rascals lost that match. It makes no sense to me. Why did we bring them back after we've been waiting? Because we have been waiting for them to return from, after Trey's injury. And then you bring them back full like, hey, here we are. And then you slap them down with this team. I didn't understand this. I thought it was disrespectful, quite honestly.
I'm a little worried that First Class is going to be first up to challenge the Hardys for the titles. I don't think they'll be successful, but I'm just like, okay, I don't like that the Rascals lost, but if the long game is for them to lose to the Hardys, I will be okay with this. But in the moment, I don't like the Rascals losing here, especially now that Trey is back to 100%. But that is how the cookie crumbles with this one. So we have to take our we have to lick our wounds, and then we'll hopefully come back. But First Class does pick up the victory, like I said before. Down payment on Trey to allow First Class to pick up the win. We move on. I know. So then we get into probably my favorite match of the whole entire evening. Josh Alexander is in the ring with the Good Hands of all people. And, you know, IRL, the Sinner and Saint had travel issues. And so then Josh, you know, goes out here and turns it into that they were, you know, at first I was like, Josh is like, they got stuck at customs. I was like, now, Joshua, be careful how you say the next thing because we don't want to perpetuate stereotypes here. But he did an okay job. And so he hired the Good Hands for this match. And right away, on paper, I was like, oh, this is about to be a banger. And it definitely was a banger. And it also progressed Josh being a total asshole to people. But we had Joshua Alexander. So Josh Alexander and the Good Hands taking on the team of Steve Macklin, Eric Young, and Jonathan Gresham. I was like, oh, this is about to be good. And it was such a good match. I love this so much. I love that Steve Macklin is just like, I lost, but I'm going to kick your ass, Josh. And he's like, bam.
I know. Talk about just desserts.
Nobody held anything back, including the Good Hands. And I love that Josh gets fed up with the Good Hands and walks out in the middle of the match. He's like, nah, buck this. I'm out. Bye, deuces. I'm out of here. Macklin's like, get your bitch ass back in this ring. And Josh is like, nah, bro, I'm out. So the poor Good Hands get decimated by the team of Young, Macklin, and Gresham. And, you know, our faces stand tall as they pick up the victory for the win. Obviously, this continued the storyline between Josh and Steve, which has me excited because I am ready for round 2 after what they did at Bound for Glory. Oh, yeah. And I love that we perpetuate it's like, oh, Josh is now being a little douchebag and he's going to like, I would love by the end of this story that Josh is looking for help and nobody in that locker room is going to come save him because he burns bridges. He burnt the bridge with Macklin and Young when he beat him up with the Northern Armory. Now he burnt bridges with Gresham after last week. He burnt bridges with the Good Hands, leaving them high and dry. It's only a matter of time before Josh turns on the Northern Sinner and Saint at some point. And so Josh is going to find himself lonely on an island and nobody's going to come and save him when he needs it.
Which will be great.
Oh, such a good story trope. But yeah, this was my favorite match of the whole entire evening. Will, why don't you give us a thought about the match and then the progression of stories we got from this?
This was like, this was my match of the night as well, because it was probably one of the 2 good matches the whole evening that makes sense. So I love, well, I say that the next one's not too bad either, but this one, this one I love how this match continued the story from Bound for Glory because you brought, you know, Young, Gresham, and Macklin together to face, you know, at the originally it was supposed to face Josh and Sinner and Saint, or Saint and Sinner, whatever. And which I thought, oh, okay, that's going to be cool. And then, of course, you know, things happened. And so the Good Hands came in. And I love how he sort of double crossed them, basically, and walked away. And I love, you know, and it's so fun. And I think I mentioned this during the Bound for Glory review. How I love how the juxtaposition has happened. How, you know, Macklin is like a face now. He's like the good guy. And it's like,
he's the hero in this story, which is not what we would have said last year.
Not at all. Because I hated Macklin. I hated him. And now I'm just like,
enormous jaw.
I'm like, and his huge mouth. And now I'm just like, wow, dude, look at you. You can actually be a good guy. Who knew?
And you then when you heard that with the juxtaposition where we loved Josh last year, and now we still love Josh the person,
we love
but
him.
The character is like, now it's like, wow, you're an asshole. I can't believe
total ass.
It's so crazy what a year of a different makes. Like the two have
Yeah.
switched.
But you know,
Josh is the
but here's
villain.
my thing, and since we're talking about transitions and things like that, from the shitty one that happened at the beginning, this transition made total sense because we saw the progression of it on both sides. We actually saw these two people. We saw Josh Alexander shifting. We saw Macklin shifting. The story pushed it that way, and it happened over time. It didn't happen overnight. And so I love this whole new dynamic with Josh being the heel, the super heel, and then Macklin being like the super face. I mean, truly, it's like, wow, look at this black hat, white hat stuff going on. And I love it. I think it's great. And I think it totally advanced the story from Bound for Glory and earlier too. So I mean, they are continuing. I love this, whatever this is between Josh and Steve. I love whatever this is. I don't know what the outcome of this is going to be, but I can't wait to see what the outcome is. Like between the beef between these two men, like what's it going to be? Is it going to be Macklin totally destroying him? Or is it Macklin taking mercy on him? Is it Macklin teaching him a lesson? Josh learning something, turning a leaf, and then whatever. I don't know, but I love it, and I hope it goes on for a while.
Right. In a weird way, I'm really hoping. So last year, remember Macklin during one of the pay-per-views came out with the war paint on. I need that Macklin to come back, but now that he's a face, I'm like ready to cheer on the soldier to beat
Yeah,
up.
me too. Yeah.
Bag him and tag him, Macklin. But our faces stand tall at the end of this. This was my favorite match of the whole entire night. This was a lot of fun. So next, we get basically they replay the Speedball Mike Bailey Hijo del Vikingo match from Bound for Glory for the X Division Championship, which made a lot of sense because, like I said at the very top of this, Vikingo got hurt during the tapings. So his match, it was scrapped, just like Chris Bay's match was scrapped after he got injured too. So we're probably not going to see those matches. So we got this match. We already said our feelings on during our review, so you can check that out, our thoughts on the actual match itself. But the important thing is what we get after this. So after the match is over, we cut backstage because we also get a little recap of, the return of Daddy Trent 7. I love Trent so much. I was like, yes, please. I loved you. I miss British strong style. I miss Mustache Man. Like, I miss Trent. I was like, yes, Dad bod, let's go. Anyways, so we get a recap of what went down during the Call Your Shot gauntlet in which Trent 7 returned and he got brutalized by AJ Francis, might I add, with the down payment on the ring apron. And so backstage, we see the reunited Speedball Mountain. So Trent 7's backstage. He's frustrated. He literally throws the towel at the floor. Speedball Mike Bailey, Mr. Miyagi himself, comes through with the Zen. And, Trent's like, bro, like, I come back. I've been missing from all this time. And that is how that's what I had to show for. I'm mad. And Mike Bailey's like, hey, man, it's okay. You know what? The important thing is we need to learn from our mistakes and we let that fuel us for next encounter. Cue the system to come ruin a really nice moment. And it is everybody, including Moose. And this is where Will's going to get really mad at me. But Moose throws down the challenge that, he wants to challenge Speedball Mike Bailey for the X Division Championship. And Mike Bailey's like, I don't run from a fight. So if that's exactly what you want, then you can. The system leave. Mike Bailey's watching them walk off. The best part of this whole thing that made me laugh is Trent 7 peers his head to the side around Speedball Mike Bailey and just mouths, what the fuck? And then we go to the next segment. So Will has expressed his feelings about the system. Will is going to get mad at me for what I'm about to say to this. So next week, we're getting an X Division Championship. I think Moose is winning.
Really?
Well, okay, so here's why, though. Because Moose has been trying to get back to the championship picture since Slammiversary, but to no avail. Remember, The X Division Championship, even though it hasn't been used since we started watching it that often, the X Division Championship has option C, which means you trade in that championship and you can get a shot at the world title. So I think Moose beats Bailey, cashes that thing in to try to go after Nick Nemeth. I just need Moose to go down a downward spiral. Like, I think this is what we're starting to set up. I don't like it because, we just gave Bailey the title back. But I also have another theory.
I don't hate it. I don't hate that theory. I mean, I'm more my oh really was more like, well, they just gave it to him. Why would they? I mean, why would they take it away from him so quick? But I mean, if that's the case, if it's just so Moose gets destroyed somewhere, I'm okay with that.
Right. And then, of course, we have something to crown a new X Division champion. Now, this is the more interesting part, though, and I've been sitting on this since last night, and I was thinking about this because I've been watching Speedball in TNA, but thankfully we've been seeing him elsewhere, like we did in MLP. And then, as I was thinking about it, I went back to our MLP review, and I'm going to recall something we were talking about when we were talking about Bailey and Takeshita's match in the main event of night 1. And I said, this is a lot more aggressive Bailey than I'm used to seeing, and I'm kind of digging for it. So hear me out, though. What if Moose wins next week, what if this is the beginning of dark Mike Bailey and we see him go down a darker path and be more heel, if you will? I'm actually kind of here for it because since being in TNA, I've only known Mike Bailey as a face. So I'm actually kind of interested if we can see this more aggressive, like instead of Mr. Miyagi, he's going to be a Cobra Kai Mike Bailey instead.
Okay. I'd be okay with that.
And I think he turns on Trent Seven. And I think that's the feud for a little bit, which I'm kind of here for.
Yeah.
Trent's going to bring him back to the light, you guys.
Mm-hmm. Give him a big old bear hug.
Yes.
That would be interesting. I mean, that would be interesting. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. I think that would be, I mean, when he fought Keshida at MLP.
Yeah.
I mean, he had to be more aggressive in that because Keshida is extremely aggressive.
Right. But even still, I was like,
I mean, it was a lot more aggressive than we're used to seeing Mike Bailey fight, but well, maybe. I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe that's what's going on. That'd be cool. Like I said, I'd be here for it.
And see, this would make sense though. It was just like, all right, but that depends on what happens next week. Mike Bailey can retain, and then that doesn't happen. But I can see a reason why Moose would win. So then he doesn't hold on to it for long. He cashes in option C to try to get the title from Nick, because Nick is the only person to beat Moose. So since Moose had the championship, so this is going to be interesting. But we're going to move on from this again. Trent Seven just sticking his head out to the side, mouthing what the fuck was hilarious.
That was
I'm like,
funny.
oh, I've missed you so much, Daddy Trent. Then we get into another fun match. This is Ash by Elegance with Heather by Elegance and, George Iceman, the concierge at ringside, taking on one half of our TNA World Knockouts tag team champions of Danny Luna of Spitfire. I gotta say, this was a really fun match, and I love the shenanigans Heather was trying, but sometimes it wasn't working. George Iceman, the concierge, got involved. Jody Threat was running interference. Like, this is a fun match, but Ash by Elegance through the broomstick shenanigans, who was dressed as a sexy witch, by the way. I love you, Ash. You never change. But
never.
after everything is going down, the ref is distracted. Danny Luna gets a broomstick to the head, and I was laughing so hard. I was like, this is stupid.
Oh yeah. It was dumb, and I loved it.
Yes, I did too. But by the way, shout out to Ash. I love this modified swanton bond that they're calling the rarefied air, which is basically a swanton dive off the top and does a flip onto the opponent. It looks great. Ash by Elegance picks up the victory. And honestly, Will, I think we might be setting the Elegance Girls versus Spitfire as the next feud for the tag titles, and I'm actually kind of here for
I'm
it.
here for it. Yep.
I'm,
Absolutely.
I'm also I love Spitfire, but I'm kind of rooting for the Elegance Girls to pick up the
Oh, me
titles at
too.
some point.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Man, talk about glamorous titles. Like, can you imagine? It's like, oh, look at these lovely belts that we have. We have matching
They get
bags.
a whole
Yeah,
makeover.
yeah, around the belts. Just like, God, I'd be here for it because I love Ash and I love Heather too. I think they're great. And then here's another continuation from Bound for Glory. You have Ash and Heather is like learning the ropes. So it's like Ash is the mentor and is like constantly like, no, that's not right. Don't do it that way. Do it this way. And I love that whole dynamic they have. I think it's super fun. And I would love, I agree. I would love to see them get the titles. I think it'd be great for them to hang on to them for a little while.
Oh, absolutely. This was a fun match. And I was
Hmm.
just like, leave it to the knockouts to keep me entertained.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
and then that was coin because they put both of our knockouts matches back to back, which I love.
Uh-huh.
But next up, it was a squash match, but I loved it because we get the return. It's been a couple weeks since her debut, but we have Miss Legging Lee taking on local talent Maggie Moore. This match goes on for about 5 minutes, and Miss Lee hits the Thunderstruck for the win. Thought this was fun. I was like, oh, she kicked her head off. Yes, I'm here for martial arts and wrestling. But when I tell you, I audibly screamed like a little girl with joy because we got the return of Savannah Evans. I
Yeah.
was like, yes. I knew she was out on injury. I wasn't sure if TNA was going to keep her since Giselle, left and Jay Vidal got
Yeah.
granted his release from TNA. So it's like, I hope Savannah sticks around because we need. I love Savannah. And homegirl looked like not to say she wasn't in shape, but girl put on some muscle.
She
That
did.
outfit was cute as hell. And she power bombed the hell out of Lee. And she's like, it's not your time, it's my time, is what she shouted. And I was just like, there we go, setting up another feud that doesn't revolve the championship. I am so happy that Savannah is still here and she is back. And it seems that we have a feud between these two brewing. I'm so happy Savannah's back, Will.
Me too. That was exciting. I was excited for that too. Yeah, when she appeared, I was like, "What?" I was like, "Hell yes!" I was like, "We
Which
need
is
the Mean Girls back."
which is great because with Savannah back, and since it's going to be singles, now we have more people to add to the possibility of who Masha can face for the next couple of
Yes.
pay-per-views, which makes me super
Yes.
excited.
Wow.
Savannah,
Wow.
I don't know if any of the wrestlers get to watch her stuff, but if you watch her stuff, know that we have missed you and we are happy that you are back in TNA. So thank the
Amen.
wrestling gods, you are back.
Amen.
And speaking of amen for me, Mike Santana, my favorite new person in TNA right now. I don't care what nobody says. He cuts this promo, and I am super excited. Give this man a championship run because he's coming for that TNA World Championship, and he's going to bring it home to us, which is, New York and all the underdogs out there. I'm like, I love Joe Hendry, but give me a Mike Santana championship run.
Yep.
I think Mike Santana is ready to have some sort of championship gold. Since coming back at Rebellion in April, this man has not slowed down in TNA, and he has put on really great matches, and he's just such a good wrestler. And his story is so good, as we previously talked about, having left AEW, got himself cleaned up, came back to wrestling after his injury and the rehab stint, and now he's thriving here in TNA. I'm just like, give Mike Santana a championship at TNA, please. I'm ready for this man. He has been one of my favorite parts of TNA since April. And I think he's probably had my favorite progression of story where he takes matters into his own hands and he jumped the system and took them out one by one.
I love
And
that.
ultimately got his revenge by beating Moose at Bound for Glory in a very good match. So I'm like, give me a Mike Santana championship run. That is all I have to say.
I think we'll get there. I really do. a champion. And he'll take a title somewhere. I know he will. It's just which one. I think he should take the X division.
Well, I mean, if Moose has it, that gives him a reason to go after Moose.
Yeah, that's true.
Again,
that is true.
It's just like, no, I'm gonna take this title from you because you don't deserve it. You don't deserve this shit.
Exactly. You don't deserve it. You don't deserve anything.
And then this continues Moose's downward spiral because Mike Santana keeps taking things from him. I would love that.
Wonderful.
It's so good. Alrighty. We had some downs, we had some ups, and now we get into our main event, which I was just like, we started off not on a great foot, and then this just went to the left, not Beyonce, but like in our main event, we get Nick Nemeth and Joe Hendry taking on the System, which is Eddie Edwards and Johnny Dango Curtis, JDC. Okay, so I gotta take my personal feelings out of this really quick because the match itself wasn't bad. It is what I expected. Though I hated the ending. And Will was not happy about the ending either. But I did make light of the situation. I'm gonna say it here as I texted Will. I'm like, the System is like I compare the System to the Dallas Cowboys. On paper, they are really good, but they cannot get the job done when it matters. So to me, I was less upset that they beat Joe and Nick because in the long run, as we have seen in TNA, when it comes to the stuff that matters, they are not going to get the job done. So they're like the Dallas Cowboys. So the match itself was okay. I did not hate it. The one thing I did not like is the fact that one miscommunication is now what broke the last straw that broke the camel's back, if you will, because that mistake, and after the System leave the arena, the last thing we see is Joe and Nick Nemeth like about to get into a fist fight on the ramp as they are yelling at each other. And then if you checked out the TNA social media, it almost got into a fist fight between Nick and Joe. Nick was arguing with his brother Ryan, which then prompted Nick and Joe Hendry to start yelling and about to swing. Santino had to get between the two of them because they were about to go throw blows. And I'm just like, now, if this was going to be where we were going to eventually, like I would be here for this because, I think my biggest issue with this is that we progressed like 6 chapters of the story into like a span of 2 hours. Like from the beginning of the show to what we got at the end, I'm like, I feel that we hit the fast forward button like too many times to get to this point. And I think that's where I'm having the biggest problem with this is we progressed this feud way too fast. I was just like, we're like in the middle of the act 2. And I'm like, but we haven't even started act 1. What you mean we're at the beginning of act 2? Like, where was all the lead up to this? And I think this is where I can't give TNA any passes. I love you, TNA, and I will defend you for most things against people who think TNA is trash. But I cannot defend your decision here, especially from a storytelling perspective, which is what I thrive on. There are ways that you could progress feuds fast if you need to, but this is not a way to do it. You can't have them going from respecting each other, leading into Bound for Glory, to going and leaving the show at the end of the 2 hours to absolutely hating each other's guts. I was just like, where was the rising action to get to this point? There was none. We had one promo at the beginning, one miscommunication in the ring, and then all hell is breaking loose and they're ready to throw blows. I was just like, what happened? I was Mickey Mouse is like, what happened? Like, what is going on? Will, I need you. I'm gonna tag you in because like I'm gonna keep spiraling and I need to hear your thoughts on this because I'm like, what is happening right now?
You talk about they fast forwarded through it. No, they didn't fast forward through it. They skipped chapters. This wasn't even a fast forward. This was literally a, hey, we're friends. Hey, we're enemies. We missed everything in the middle. There was in this is where I was again, where my frustration lies, is that if you're going to tell a story. Do not skip ahead because you want to get to the good parts. Because guess what? Every story has crappy parts to it. You got to get through it all. We've got to see the progression. There is no progression here. This is what irritates me so much, is that I don't even think that this is really Nick's character either. You know, so you've made both of these men who are like ultimate faces. You've turned these faces into something that I don't even recognize. That's completely out of their character. And I'm just like, I don't understand it. I don't get it. And and I'm not happy with the outcome of this match. I don't, and I mean, unlike my counterpart here, I think it's BS that the system comes in and they kick Nemeth and Hendry's butts in this match. And I don't understand Eddie Edwards and what the hell? It's like I don't get it. I don't understand the story. I don't know what you're trying to tell me. I don't know what you're trying to establish. I don't know what's happening. I don't even know. And that's what's pissing me off is because I knew what was happening. And then I don't know if TNA was just like, hey, let's just throw everybody a curveball. Which, is okay if it's done right. This is a curveball that was not done right. And I don't know where they're going with it. And I don't know how they're going to get where they need to go with this. Because now it's like, because they're, and the thing that irritates me, the other thing that irritates me is they're using that one miscommunication to create this massive like rivalry that feels like it's been going on for years now. And it literally just started. So you're telling me, yeah, like Mikey said, these two men who respected each other, there's we have this little bit of frustration thing happening at the beginning. And then one miscommunication in the ring, not this is the sixth miscommunication in the ring, one against the system, who we already know are into shenanigans. We know that they're into like causing problems. So what the hell, TNA? I mean, again, and I agree with Mikey. I will defend TNA till the cows come home, but I cannot get behind whatever this is. I cannot. After that match was done and all that shit happened afterwards, I like got up and walked away. I was so angry that I didn't even care after that. I was just like, as they were arguing up the ramp, I was like, I'm done. I'm done. I don't know what you're doing with my boys, but I'm done. And I turned it off and walked away. I was like, what you were talking about, I didn't even know any of that happened because I literally walked away.
Yeah, I mean, to echo what my compatriot here has said, so Papa also basically has beautifully explained, what we both feel is that we skip chapters. And as somebody who loves story and wrestling, like there is a way to tell these, the leading events leading into this, but we skip chapters to get to this point. And I'm just sitting here and I'm like, I think this is so. I had my doubt. I've had some doubts with certain things in 2024 with TNA, but TNA has done a pretty good job to assuage my doubts. I'm worried of where Nick and Joe are going to end up by the end of 2024 now. Like, I know people might be saying, that's a little harsh, isn't it? I was like, you might be right, and maybe it's nothing. But we have 2 pay-per-views left in 2024. We have Turning Point at the end of November, and then like 2 weeks later, we have Final Resolution. I am worried what the next 2 months for Joe and Nick look like. And if we continue down this path, I'm worried of where they're going to end up when we get to Genesis in January. Like Genesis is the next big 4 pay-per-view in which TNA kind of like concludes the last 3 months of stories we've been telling. So TNA does a good job of doing like 3 month stories and feuds and things like that intertwine and connect with other characters. I don't know if I'm ready for this to be a 3-month story. Like,
nope.
So TNA, I'm gonna hold out hope because while I've had questions about you so far in 2024, you usually haven't proven me wrong. But I'm going to be keeping my eye on this story, and I'm hoping that it goes into a different direction than where I think it's going to go. But TNA, you need to put in the work, which does bring us to the end of this episode, Papa Oso. So we got to give our empanada ratings. I feel that we're going to be completely different in our ratings.
Probably.
So I'll go first so we can get it out of the way so Will can yell at me later. But first, got to shout out the homeboy, Robert Brown, representing Lafayette, Indiana in the house. Welcome to the end of our review. We basically spent like 60% of the review recapping the episode and the other 40% just hounding on how we're not enjoying this Nick Nemeth, Joe Hendry feud that has progressed
spontaneously created.
Like it spontaneously got to like Act 2, and we skipped all the stuff in Act 1 to get to the feud. And I was just like, but what? Okay, so back to the empanada ratings, right? So Robert, y'all going live for Crown Jewel? We will not be going live for Crown Jewel. I was gonna wait into the end, but I'll just say this now. So since I've started BC WrestlePod, I love the talent in WWE. The WWE boys love the talent in WWE. It is not the talent. We are not going live for Crown Jewel only because we here at BC WrestlePod do not support the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, especially when it comes to its past treatment and history with marginalized and, communities such as the queer community, and as well as, its treatment of women and just other religions as well. Now, I will say that I will be posting results of Crown Jewel because what's probably going to happen there, some of it might affect what happens at Survivor Series down the road. But that's just our stance. But we also do not knock anybody who is going to be watching Crown Jewel because we do not want to stop anybody and tell them, you shouldn't do this. This is just where I stand as the boss of BC WrestlePod and where everybody else is. And Robert, thank you for saying Crown Jewel is just a warm-up pay-per-view. That's exactly how Crown Jewel has been every single year since its inception. Like, it's non-canon. If like in terms of anime, it's like a filler arc, a filler episode. It's not even the beach episode where it's like fantastic. It's just a filler episode to get us to the next story arc, which is Survivor Series. But I will be posting results set tomorrow after the event is over. But back to our ratings. Despite my critiques of the things we saw, I'm gonna give this a 7.5 empanadas, which is a B for me. Outside of my personal biases and my personal frustrations, I also have to look at everything else. If I take the Nick Nemeth and the Joe Hendry stuff and put it to the side and not let that be my main focal point of it, I do like a lot of the things that went down this episode. The Joe Hendry and the Nick Nemeth stuff definitely took a lot of points away from it. And then the system shenanigans is... But I do like that we are getting Jordan and Masha teaming up next week. We're also getting Rosemary and Wendy Chu going at it. I didn't care if I asked y'all this, y'all DBZ fans. Sorry to take y'all off topic. So I am familiar with Dragon Ball Z. That is the original series too. I know they have a reboot going on right now, but yeah, this is basically a filler arc. So Robert, now we're going to go down the rabbit hole before I ask, Will for his results now. So thanks a lot. I'm just kidding. Thank you. I love it. The interaction is a lot of fun. But I equate this to what's happening with Nick and Joe to, the tournament where we got Majin Buu, but we skipped over, the stories that were happening in the tournament to get to the finals. So this is exactly what's happening. Nick Nemeth and Joe Hendry at the beginning of the show was the start of the tournament, and we just skipped over the character progression to the very end for them hating each other. I'm like, what the flip is this? We missed all the good juicy bits. But anyways, I give this a 7.5, which on my scale is like a low B, a B minus, if you will. I didn't hate this episode. I thought it was pretty decent, but Nick Nemeth and Joe Hendry definitely took a lot out of me. But there was a lot of stuff that I like. Will, I'm going to pass it on to you. And hold up. All right. I have my emotional support shy guy ready to go. Let me have it.
Okay. So Unlike my counterpart here, I included my personal feelings in this because I think it's important that we do so, because it's not just about the technicality of what we're watching, it is about how it makes us feel as observers. And this episode pissed me the fuck off. Absolutely. I have never in my life have I been so angry with TNA like I was for this episode. I mean, literally to the point where I literally shut it off and walked away. I didn't want to be here for the review because the stuff with Joe Hendry and Nick Nemeth, it affects the whole thing. It doesn't just affect this one little moment or that one little moment. It affects a much larger picture. And I think them doing what they've done with this, whatever the hell it is literally going to throw everything off. Now, and it already did. This whole episode was thrown off because now it's like, well, this had nothing to do with this, and this had nothing to do with this, and this had nothing to do with this. And I didn't, I don't understand any of it. So looking at this from my own like subjective side, I gave it a 4. A 4. And that was me being generous. Because TNA did me wrong. They did me wrong in this one. They did. I mean, to the point. I was literally to the point where I didn't want to watch it anymore. Because I'm like, you literally have done something that you should not have done. You took us, you broke the rules of storytelling. You broke my trust. You break my trust, we're done. And that's where I am. I literally gave it a 4.
Well, guys, this is the last episode of the Takedown Troupe. We want to thank everybody for this journey. I'm just kidding. No, and I can't fault Will for how he feels, because Lord knows Will hears me he hears me constantly complain about how ROH breaks my trust on a weekly basis. Like, Ring of Honor breaks my trust. It's really weird because normally I'm used to ROH disappointing me, and I'm usually used to TNA to being pretty good when we talk about both shows on Fridays. This week, I felt like Mercury was in retrograde or something, because we got a 3-hour ROH episode that was fantastic. Me and Jesse couldn't do a formal review, but I gave it an 8.5. Jesse gave it a 9 out of 10. Like, it was that good. And then we get to TNA, and I was like, TNA, damn, you disappointed me this week. What is happening? It's usually the opposite. But guys, that's the last episode of Takedown Troupe. We like to thank you for this journey. I'm just kidding. But I will say we are going on a bit of a hiatus because of reasons that do not need to be explained on here. But we will be going to a hiatus because schedules are about to get busy. So we will not be having a TNA review for the next 2 weeks. But that is okay, because hopefully they will fix the things that they did in this episode. Probably not. But me and Will are going to still be watching this, and I will probably give a quick video on the socials, giving my quick thoughts of everything. But we will be back in 3 weeks, which is fun because we will just be back in time, just in time leading into Turning Point, which is going to be a lot of fun. But that is going to be it for us here at the Takedown Troupe. So technically, that's the end of all the week's reviews for this week. It's been a busy week for everybody. But we have reached the end. I will preview the week fully, but stay tuned because next week we've got more fun reviews going down. We also have next Saturday a fun watch along, as me and Adolfo have inked a new watch along. We are going, and this is for free on YouTube. We're going to be watching the MLW CMLL crossover show called Lucha Apocalypto, which is going to be fantastic. It is going to be starting at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard, 10 p.m. Eastern for all you those. And it's free on YouTube. Nobody's got to pay for anything. So y'all can just go on MLW's website, and the matches are going to be fantastic. But we will review and preview those matches next week on the Los Lobos de la Lucha review. But that is going to be it for us here at the Takedown Troupe. From myself, and, despite me and Will having differing opinions about certain things, I'm just kidding. honestly, I can't do this without Will, and I'm gonna be sad that we don't get to talk about TNA on a live format for the next 2 weeks. But I look forward to when we return to TNA. And also, if y'all haven't checked it out yet or heard the news, also in 2 weeks, Will also officially be the third official host for our NXT review. So you will catch him not only on Fridays for TNA, but you could catch him pulling double duties on Wednesday. First with me and Mr. Luis Macho Rodriguez for NXT, and then you could catch Will, myself, and El Buntador the second for CMLL. So Will's about to be on and popping. I'm excited, but Will, thank you for taking the time to come and review this TNA, despite it, not being too fun for sure. But I wouldn't have it any other way. We have the ups and the downs, and I look forward to when we're back from hiatus in 3 weeks that we get to hopefully talk about how they fixed everything. Fingers crossed and toes crossed at this point. But that is going to be it here for us at the Takedown Troupe. So thank you for watching this evening. And from myself, Will, our partner, Andrew, who hopefully will be coming back relatively soon as we get closer to winter, and the rest of the BC WrestlePod family. Remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay iconic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We will catch you later, but until then, sayonara, adios, and we'll see you next time.